Okay, let's get started. We've got a good crew here online, and most importantly, guest of honor, Sarah Newcomb. Welcome to this month's episode of Chopping Wealth.
Thanks. This is great. I'm looking forward to chopping it up.
Yes. So for those who might not be familiar with the format, Chopping Wealth is one of the key features of the Outsourced Chief Behavioral Officer platform, OCBO. And every month we sit down with an expert in behavior, advice, or some other fascinating field and chop it up. And today's guest is not only a good friend, but one of the people I respect the most in applied behavioral science. I've known Sarah Newcomb for a number of years and was just thrilled when she said she'd come on board. Rules of the road, this is kind of an open chat. So the Q&A is open, the chat is open, I'm watching, Sarah could be watching, I don't know what she's got open on her screen. But by all means, let's dig into what we're going to broadly call applied behavioral finance, financial psychology, and sort through a lot of the terms, because Sarah, you have seen everything that's out there, and you are one of the people who's making sense of it all. For my benefit and everybody's benefit, can you tell, your story, maybe the short version of your story, because you've got a doctorate in the field, you're a highly accomplished writer, but you also have had some pretty wild adventures, and I think all of that creates a pretty amazing you. And let's hear what you're all about before we get into the technical stuff.
Sure. I'm trying to think of the short version because I always feel like I need to go back and say, growing up, money was a source of stress, and it represented barriers to the things that I wanted to do in my life. For many people, money is opportunity and freedom and power and adventure. Money is opportunity. But for me, I was conditioned for most of up until my mid-20s at the very least. Money represented the reason why I couldn't do the things I wanted to do in my life. I grew up in rural Maine, where I am now, and with dreams of being on Broadway and an opera singer, and connecting. I was good. I got into the New England Conservatory for opera, but we didn't have the money for it. And there's no opera in this area, So the point being, I'm one of the millions of kids who grow up looking around at their life and saying, well, what options do I have? How do I make this work? And I didn't know how to make it work. And home ec doesn't teach you, I'm from the generation, my mom was actually a home ec teacher for a time. I learned to be resourceful, but I didn't understand money. And I was really bad with money. And so when I found myself at 28 with a degree in math, I had wandered through dead-end jobs and finally went to my undergrad at 24 when I could take loans out without a cosigner. And I thought it was too late for opera, so I went and fell in love with math. And at 28, I had a degree in math, and I still couldn't get my finances together. And I thought, well, it's not numbers. It can't be numbers. And so I thought, all right, fine. If this is a logic issue, then I'm going to learn how the pros manage money. And I went to Bentley University for personal financial planning. And it was there because I thought, look, I'm just going to, if this is an exercise in logic, if I can understand the fundamental theorem of calculus, it's hard, but I get it. In Bentley, woo! I thought if I can understand that, then I must be able to figure out money. And if I can figure this out, then I can get a career that'll pay me well. And then when I have money, I'll know what to do with it, right? That was the plan. But that plan, as great as it was, I learned, tax law and portfolio management and all of that. Learned a lot about financial products and services. But then I took a class with this guy, Jim Grubman. And this was his first class that he taught at Bentley. It was the first of its kind. This was like 2006. So this is pre-nudge, we don't have Duke's program in behavioral economics at this point, right? But we had Jim Grubman, who had spent his career working with ultra high net worth families, helping them in their family meetings to deal with the deep interpersonal and intrapersonal aspects of managing great wealth across generations, across personalities, across family dynamics. And that was where I learned that I wasn't alone in having a complicated relationship with money that was I had been standing in my own way because of unexamined thoughts and beliefs that were driving behaviors. And it wasn't that I was bad with money, and it had nothing to do with numbers. It was when I realized that my view on the world was affecting the way I managed my money day to day and the long-term decisions I made or didn't make. That was when my eyes opened and I thought, I cannot be the only person who is driven and ambitious and trying to figure this out and stuck. And I thought at that point, all right, rather than manage other people's money, what I really want to do is help other people see these things that I'm starting to see. And that set me on the course that I'm on.
Okay, so opera singing mathematician. I think that's going to be a unprecedented achievement for chopping wealth. And this line, we're going to come back to this because it lands not alone in having a complicated relationship with money. All right, so we're going to boil that ocean during this conversation, but let's kind of get to today's finish line in terms of you went and then became Dr. Sarah.
Yeah, so
what was the focus?
I decided that I wanted to, after I had done some internal work figuring out my own issues, I thought, okay, now I want to look at systematically, what are the ways that we tend to stand in our own way financially, So I knew there were books out there like The Millionaire Mind and Think and Grow Rich. And they claim that if you think in certain ways, you can attract riches or whatever. I wanted to know, are there ways that we think that keep us poor? Are there patterns of thinking that contribute to getting stuck, staying stuck, poverty traps? And so that's what I decided I wanted to learn. And so what I did was an interdisciplinary PhD where I combined economics and psychology and just scoured journals from from consumer psychology, economics, all the way back to Bernoulli. And I mean, it was a wonderful experience of just trying to make sense of this landscape of what do we know about how we make financial decisions. There's both the cognitive part of it, and then there's also the social part of it, and putting those together. So I spent, a good 8 years just indulging in learning about these what we already know. And then trying to say, okay, now, how do we put that into practice? My passion is financial education. So I looked at, the psychological barriers to sound money management with applications to financial education.
So before we dive into some of those specific topics that you wrote about, I'm curious because I don't know the answer. Did your dissertation become loaded? Did you turn the dissertation into a book?
No. The dissertation was 3 research papers, and it was focused on, what are the barriers to sound money management, and then how can we improve our financial education efforts by adding a psychology lens. And so that was my dissertation. And loaded is different, but loaded is more like I sat down and I collected, what have I learned? What were all the aha moments? How can I organize what I've learned over the last 10 years of just digging into these questions? And that's what loaded is. It's like, it's more of what did I learn for the layman?
Okay. So let me just start off with a big picture question. What is financial well-being?
Yeah. So I mean, I love your definition of wealth, funded contentment. I think financial well-being it has at least two dimensions. One is, of course, economic stability. And the other is psychological well-being. And we tend to assume that economic stability brings psychological well-being, leads to well-being, because we see positive correlations there in lots of different data sets. But that doesn't tell the whole story, because wealth doesn't always bring, and it's definitely not a one-to-one relationship. There's plenty of people, if you've worked with people people with money, plenty of them feel empty. Plenty of them are unhappy. Plenty of them are not thriving in their lives. Psychological well-being is orthogonal to economic stability. And so you have to think about both elements. So financial well-being or financial health, in my definition, is a condition, the condition of having both economic stability and psychological well-being, both, not one or the other.
Right. I remember a study you did with a bit of your quant skills on display, where you did the right thing as a social scientist or as a scientist you showed kind of a one variable perspective, but then when you start introducing other variables, the picture becomes quite complicated and messy in a good way. Because if you're just measuring, say, income, well, that's going to correlate pretty strongly, positively to economic stability. You don't make a lot of money, you're not stable. You do make a lot of money, you're very stable. But then you did something that I really appreciated, which was, I don't remember if it was within income quintiles, from not a lot to very high salary, but within quintiles, you then introduce I think what you called financial confidence variable.
Yeah, there's two. So for economic stability, it's that mental time horizon. You break it up and you see that in every single income group, people who are thinking short term didn't have as much as high net worth as people who were thinking 10 years ahead or more. And so all I did was I added a psychographic variable. Right. And so then you control for the demographics of income, you add the psychographics and split people up, and you see, wow, the people that think in this way tend to have significantly fewer assets and significantly greater debts in every income group. So yes, there is a positive relationship between income and net worth, but you can't change someone's income. Not really. You can help change their mental time horizon. And so that split where you see these two lines that are like sort of parallel, right? And you say, well, so the short-term thinkers, if you could just help them think longer term, you can, without changing their income, you can bump them up to this line. That represents the difference that a financial advisor, just by sort of planting seeds of thinking longer term, just helping them imagine, just planting little seeds of their future self in conversations, over time, you're helping bump them up, and you're creating this internal change that then we know is strongly correlated with different behavior. So it's like an internal nudge more than it is an environmental nudge.
Yeah, got it. And did you, thinking through these different variables in terms of long versus short horizon, more or less confidence, external variables like, okay, I make X versus less than X, any causality? And sorry to some of the audience if we're getting a little too social sciencey wonky here, but you're raising some questions that have consequences for the way we then choose to advise and coach our clients. So let's just isolate the time horizon variable.
Okay, so let's look at time horizon and net worth, right? So which is which, right? Which is the chicken, which is the egg? And the reality is that that the relationship is bidirectional, right? So if you, for example, grow up in instability, you can't think ahead. You can't plan ahead. And so then you make myopic decisions, which then reinforces that short-term thinking, which creates a feedback loop that is self-reinforcing. Now, on the other hand, if you grow up, if you're in an environment where you have stability, where you have some assets, you can think further ahead, because that baseline of stability allows you to look. Now, you still may be a short-term thinker by nature, just because some of us are, but you at least have more of a capacity to breathe and look forward should you choose to, right? Then making future-oriented decisions adds to your stability, which allows you to look further ahead, right? And that creates a positive feedback loop. So they are bi-directional. It's not that one causes the other. The way to think about it, I think, though, is that, well, where can you have an impact? You can't necessarily change the net worth they're working with, but you can change the attitude, the mental habit. And because this is why I look for really simple, changeable factors of mindset, because that way, once you go, oh, I think I'm working with a short-term thinker here. Okay, cool. So you get a sense of, well, how far ahead are they thinking? Is it, 6 months? Is it a year? Okay, maybe a 40-year time horizon doesn't make sense to this person because it's just really way off their radar. Maybe I could get them to start thinking, like, maybe we could make like a 2 or 3 year goal and really start making that tangible for them, really sort of stretch that horizon.
I'm trying to put myself in the advisor seat and wondering, well, how do I know what my client's time horizon is? Is it sort of a narrative-based discovery and you sort of listen to the way they talk about things, or are you using psychometrics, or have you seen other use psychometrics where you can say, kind of independent of being born in scarcity or abundance, this person, they're just here and now and they're impetuous, and this person, by contrast, is able to see the very long view?
Yeah, so I mean, you can ask a really simple question on your intake questionnaires if you want. What I've done in studies, like I started with big, long questionnaires, and eventually, got down to like one question that was just, when you think about your money, how far ahead do you tend to think and plan? And the options I give people are days, weeks, months, years, decades, or generations. And so, people just tell you which one. If you don't want to be that, like, I don't want to give my clients a questionnaire, you just listen, and they'll drop, what are they talking about? Are they talking about 10 years from now? Or when they come in, are they thinking about this year? Are they thinking they want to, like, part of it is, how close are they to the goals that they've been planning for? But part of it is, what's their furthest goal? How far have they really, thought through without your prompting? What's the furthest goal that they really like seem attached to? It's also, you might see, like with couples, you can see when one is a spender and one is a saver, more than likely the spender is a shorter term thinker than the saver.
And I would say, because I know a number of people here on the call, accomplished financial advisors. So on this topic of time horizon, gauging clients' time horizon, the chat is open, the questions are open, so feel free to chime in. So, all right, so we're painting this picture of financial well-being, and there's a few different moving pieces. I want to come back to financial confidence, which I believe from your view has dimensionality to it. What else do we need to know? It seems like, I guess I'll put it this way, because I reread a bunch of your stuff leading, to prepare for today. This this word confidence comes up a lot. It seems like it's an important word to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell us more.
What do I mean when I say confidence? So the way that I'm defining confidence is, again, I got it down to one question. And I started with a whole locus of control thing, and then I, narrowed it down over time, got it to one question. And the answer to this one question correlated 0.7 correlation to the whole CFPB financial well-being scale. So, so it's not a terrible judge of, or proxy for overall financial well-being. It's just on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you agree or disagree with the statement, I could handle whatever comes my way financially? And so it's an attitude of confidence that you could handle the unknown, that that you could bounce back. It's that sense of, like you always say, will I be okay? It's that internal sense of, yeah, you know what, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. I can handle what comes my way. The more that someone has that internal belief, the higher the financial confidence in my book. And that the answer to that question is the other dimension of the financial well-being. So you've got how far ahead you're thinking, and that helps you plan, it helps you make long-term decisions, it helps you save, it helps you invest, it helps you stay invested, right? Long-term thinking is essential to the activities of planning and reaching goals, right? The other side of it, though, is that confidence to be able to handle and be flexible, right? Because confidence leads to calm, flexibility, and fear, on the other hand, financial anxiety is, fear shortens our mental time horizon. We suddenly, like, we are right here, right now, and it is intense, right? Fear leads to myopia, urgency, intensity, that need to act, because all you want is to take control so you can reduce the anxiety, right? But confidence says, I'm calm, I'm flexible. And the thing about financial confidence is that it doesn't come from having a number. It's an inside job. And that is where that coaching element of advising can make such a difference for people, because you could show them a number, but if they tend toward anxiety thinking with their money, no number is going to be enough. They'll find another what if to reach onto again. So that confidence is that feeling of, yeah, you know what, I could handle it, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah. All right, so we're kind of like painting out this mosaic here, and I want to say a word that is one of the least favorite words in finance by everybody involved, and that is budget. And I know that you've written extensively on budgets for better, for worse, and maybe for worse, and specifically thinking through needs versus wants and how we allocate capital accordingly. And as I was listening to you, I was thinking how it ties pretty well to whether you are a short versus long-term thinker and what counts as a need versus a want. What I've appreciated in your writing and research is how you attach the traditional, hey, here's a need versus a want, which, to be honest, is the way I think we talk to our kids about money. I think it's how we might talk to our partners about making our financial plans together. But you say no.
Yeah, I really don't like the needs versus want language, because the way we talk about it, it really runs counter to human motivational theory. So the reality is that, so when we talk about, well, you need to know the difference between a want and a need with budgeting, what we're generally saying is, if you don't need it, if it's not like a survival need, then it's not really a need, it's a want. And so that is not true when it comes to human beings. All right, so you've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your survival needs, your physiological needs, your need for connection, for love, for belonging, for self-actualization, right? To fulfill your potentiality as a human being, right? Human psychology says those aren't wants. Those are needs. If you don't have those needs met, you are unwell. And we all know, at least most of us have experienced the pain of not having those needs met at some point in our lives. And we strive constantly to be hitting on all cylinders, right? So the needs versus want thing with money, then we say, oh, but if you don't need it to survive, if it's not on the bottom tier of Maslow's hierarchy, you're not allowed to spend money on it. Or at least, it has to be a lower priority for you financially, And so it discounts those things as unnecessary. And what I think we need to do is say, look, everything we do with money is a current attempt, successful or not. Everything we do with money is an attempt to meet one of those needs, right? It may be effective, it may be efficient, it may be completely false and wasteful attempt, but that's what we're trying to do. And so if you just slash things off your budget and say, well, I don't need these things, so I'm not going to put them in my budget, what you've done is you've made a plan to feel deprived. And you're basically saying, I'll feel deprived later so that I don't have to, or I feel deprived now so I don't have to feel deprived later. But most of us, and I think especially short-term thinkers, of which I am one, and I am like a constantly recovering short-term thinker, the idea of waiting to be happy feels like, why? I'm alive right now, And so what we want is we want to be able to create a plan for how we're going to thrive right now, how we're going to get how we're going to live lives that we love right now within the confines of the resources we have. And it might mean changing some strategies for meeting needs, right? So maybe you don't drive the brand new Mercedes. Maybe you get the late model and, that somebody took really good care of. And you're still meeting your need for a great car that you love driving, that you feel good in, but it's got a lower price tag. Same, the ways that we can, once we're aware of the needs that we're trying to meet with our financial strategies, then you've got this creative problem solving task where you say, how am I going to take what I've got and use it to be hitting on all cylinders right now? Then you're happy in your current life, which means you're more likely to stick with that budget and reach those goals to be happy later as well. But if you're depriving yourself constantly through budgeting, you either have to be a very long-term thinker and be satisfied with living in the future, or you need to find a way to meet all those needs so that you feel fulfilled and you don't sabotage your own budget along the way.
Where does status fit into this rubric? And I can't recall if this is something you've written about. It's something I've begun to think about a fair bit, and I'd like to write something. There's some pretty good recent academic books on sort of evolutionary psychology and status. So, and the reason this question comes to mind was your evocative example of, okay, I'm not going to buy the 2023 Mercedes. I'm going to buy the 22 or the 21, gently used, perfectly kept.
Great car, still fun.
Still a great car, but you haven't bought this year's model. And presumably, if you did a blind test, you wouldn't know you were sitting in the 23 versus the 22 model. But in a not blind test, as you pull into your driveway and your neighbors see you and you see them, well, there's other things going on that are not unimportant or trivial. They're actually also deeply tied to our evolutionary psychology. So maybe challenging you a little bit here to kind of layer in the relevance of status in what you've set up is an unbelievably sort of, I think, smart and robust framework for thinking about financial well-being. Let's kind of try to break it down a little bit.
Yeah. So status is on Maslow's hierarchy, first of all. Like, it's not a dirty word. We do need respect from others, as in order to feel like we're we're killing it at life, like, and some people to more of a degree than others really value that, I think so. Status, there are healthy, just like with anything, right? There's a healthy pursuit of status and there's an unhealthy one, right? And when it's about esteem and respect, it can be a really great motivator to be one's best self, and to so that you can fit in with this tribe of awesome people that you want to fit in with, right? I think it comes down to how we choose our tribes and whether our tribes are materialistic in nature, which is a totally legit way to be, but psychology shows us it's not a way to build well-being psychologically. People who adopt a materialism framework for personal values tend to be less satisfied with their lives. And I mean, it kind of makes sense, because then you put yourself in a maximizing frame of mind where if you see dollars as, like you said, I think it was Charlie Munger, dollars being like, oh, no, it was Gordon Gekko, dollars being like a record of wins and losses. I think that the economy is just a zero-sum game, and that's all it is. Dollars mean you're better at the game than others. Then, you need to ask yourself if having more dollars really is making you happy. If it is, I mean, if it is, it is. But if there's never enough, then there's something's not working, right? Because there's still, do you know what I'm getting at? Like, if you're not thriving, if chasing status is breaking you in another way, it's not working. But I do think that we need to feel like we are respected, and so for some that is bought through shows of material wealth. It's an option. I don't think it's a really fulfilling one long term. I don't think you could find a whole lot of evidence to back up the idea that living a materialistic lifestyle brings deep personal happiness.
Yeah. So I've got a riff in mind that is totally off-piste for today's chat, but what it means to choose one's own tribe, I think kind of is inverted. I think we are born as social creatures who then sort of articulate their individual identity. And so the individual identity to some extent is derivative of the social tribes that we were born into, because we have multiple and cross-cutting allegiances and identities. And so to say that I'm going to switch tribes, easier said than done.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it does come at a huge psychological cost. Even when you're moving up social classes, economic classes, a lot of people will stay in poverty among friends because the other option is to advance themselves economically and be alone. And that cost is not worth it to many people. So, you're completely right. It's not just like, oh yeah, find new people. But sometimes if the pursuit of, if the definition of the good life has been handed to you and does not fit, then I think we each have to go through this developmental stage of saying, this is what I was told I should pursue, I should want in my life. This is what I was told are the markers of success and of wealth and of whatever else. And yet at some point we become ourselves, and part of what that is choosing one's values and then mobilizing your resources in pursuit of those values. And that is what a self-actualized life is a purposeful pursuit of chosen values. And maybe those values align with the people that you happen to be born into, and maybe they don't. We switch tribes when our values don't fit, or when the values of the tribe is is leading to unhealthy states of being.
So you are dropping so many gold nuggets here. I can't believe it. Folks, if you want to jump into the conversation, ask questions, everything is open and flowing. So, you're here today in no small part because you're just expert at helping others talk through difficult money issues. And you've developed an idea that you've described to me as financial life modes. Now, that's not something that you've published on extensively, but this is a, intimate group here that wants to hear your voice. Can you share just kind of a précis of kind of what is a financial life mode, and why, as you've shared with me offline, why does this phrase or this notion seem to energize you as maybe a bit of a skeleton key to opening a bunch of locked doors when it comes to better money conversations?
Yeah, so I mean, let's just start by thinking about, like, you're trying to work with somebody's money, and you're trying to get a sense of who is this person with money, right? I mean, who are they when it comes to their money? How do they think about it? I mean, you can ask a bunch of open-ended questions and go down any number of rabbit holes, right? But ultimately, what you're trying to get at is where are they at financially, and what knowledge do they have of how money works and how to employ money to their own ends, and where are the gaps, right? So you're trying to get a sense of that. And we often learn, I have my handy whiteboard here. So we often
Are you going Dr. Newcomb on us?
I'm gonna go what's her name? The senator with the whiteboard. I love her. So here's the thing, is that when you first, we're all sort of familiar with what many call the morbid mountain of you've got your accumulation stage, your preservation, and your decumulation, maybe leaving a legacy, right? And that's fine, but this only describes a very small percentage of people, right? This is not how most people's finances look. Many people have to start off going down in debt, right, to fund an education, and then they do this, and maybe it's more like that. A lot of people will end up having a major setback, right? Some people start off up here, but the reality is that we will go through many different sort of seasons in our financial lives, and we want to have a sense of, like, what could it look like. So what I came up with was basically like, okay, the x-axis is still time, but it's not necessarily age, okay? And I'm going to draw one thing here, but this is just one possible path, okay? Goes from the worst to sort of the best stages. So you'd start off in chaos mode, okay? Your net worth, this is your net worth, positive, negative. Your net worth is negative and getting worse, okay? If you're in chaos mode, you don't need financial planning, you need credit counseling, you need possibly bankruptcy, you need triage, right? And you definitely need to learn about, like, you may need some financial education. Then you've got survival mode. Survival is when you're just trying to keep your head above water, right? A lot of people will spend their whole lives in survival mode. My parents were in survival mode the whole time I was growing up. So then you've got stability, okay? And stability is positive, but not growing. You've got some stability. This is when you can start looking long-term, because when you're here, you can't see long-term. You just can't, right? You're thinking about right now. Then once you get some stability, now you can start thinking about long-term. Now you get to growth, accelerated growth, and then preservation, legacy, and possibly decumulation, okay? Now, the thing about it is that if somebody is born in legacy mode, they're a trust fund kid, one of these modes, from chaos, survival, stability, you can think of it as having, like, specific financial behaviors and skills that if you learn them, then you're more likely to move to the next stage up. But if you don't learn them, you probably won't advance. Like if you can't get organized, and if you can't start to automate some things, and if you can't get your basic mechanics of cash flow management down, you're not moving out of survival mode. You just won't, unless you win the lottery, and then you jump up here. But if you haven't got those skills, if you never learned or internalized those skills, you might as well, you know, you may end up right back where you started in survival mode a few years later. So the idea here is you can say, now, where are they? Where have they been? Which modes have they been through?
So it sounds like this is the seeds of an incredibly powerful storytelling tool. You can almost, I'm thinking, and my partner Neil, who I know is on the line, I bet you I know he's thinking graphically about how you would actually almost walk along or work with a client to do these things. There's a question from Rainey in the chat that it's interesting on two levels. One is you're talking about this financial life mode dynamic, which seems super powerful. Rainey here is using a different, maybe a complementary tool, which is the money script idea. And she's bringing us back to a super important topic of overspending, financial profligacy, and things like that. Because I want to you know get the group involved. Can we dive into this question, because I think it's an important one in terms of how the types of challenges that on the ground in the field financial advisors are tackling with their clients. So what Rainey asks is helping clients who are overspending to status or money worship script, especially in the context of choosing our values and living them out.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to overspending, it's usually, I would say, helpful for them. They probably have certain areas where they overspend. I know for me, as a when I overspend, it's generally triggered by emotions. When I feel insecure, when I feel bored, when I feel depressed, I want to go. I tend toward shopping for clothes or something beautiful, right? It's because we know that we get that dopamine kick, and that it's if you're overspending chronically, then and you're saying here that it's due to a status / worship script. Okay, so this isn't like they're overspending on car repairs. They're overspending on this specific sort of emotional need. It's an emotional interpersonal need that they're trying to meet. And so here's where the difference between the needs and strategies. You're not going to say, look, you don't need that. You don't need status. You don't need to belong. But you can ask the question, how can you still belong for less money? Are there ways that we can, you know, like if and it's, I mean, I would love it. Is it Rainy? Are you willing to talk more about what's going on there, so that I'm not like trying to get everything from this one little text?
We'll wait for Rainey to chime in with more, because I love kind of the, hey, these are, because I know Rainey is a very senior financial advisor at a very prominent RIA. So, you know, if she's asking this specific question, it means that I know she's probably seeking to help someone very very specific.
In the meantime, while Rainey's typing, I want to say to Joe, when you were saying that it's looking, the life modes looks a lot like Mint. Yeah, it does. And it's really easy to tell what life mode someone is in, because all it is the shape of their net worth over maybe like 3-year time period. So this would be stability, where, or this is survival, right? So you're not going to have many clients that are in survival mode. But the point with each of these, I just wanted to say, is that when you know what mode they're in, there's corresponding thoughts and financial tasks. Some are tactical, some are strategic, that if they master those, this like, it helps you say like, okay, somebody in stability mode might have certain financial education needs that somebody in accelerated growth mode has different financial education needs. Just like they need different financial products, they need different knowledge. And so it can help you just to quickly gauge with some accuracy, better than just a wild guess, what their knowledge gaps or knowledge needs for right now might be. So you meet them with just-in-time financial education.
So it's my first radio host moment when I can say, Rainey, you're on the line.
Sweet.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. I'm glad, because it's so much easier for me to talk than to type. I actually need to have this conversation tomorrow with a client, and it's a unique situation where she lost her husband very young. Husband was a partner in a big CPA firm. So while he was living and they were raising their two boys, you know, they had set goals. They were already overspending at that level. But now, you know, she lost her husband in 2019, continues to spend at levels outpacing even the spending when he was living, right? Because now we have life insurance proceeds and savings, but she is very young and absolutely going to outlive her assets. Also has 10 and 13-year-old boys. So much of this spending is very clearly emotional. So I love, Sarah, what you're saying about you cannot take away that need. That is a real need that needs to be met. And so, but having that conversation carefully around the spending and how to rein it in. The core values resonate with me because I'm thinking we're helping our kids write their scripts right now, right? So there's got to be some appeal to the values you are instilling in your children as well. But I just am very curious as to how to speak to that with a level of empathy that's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, you without becoming their therapist, you can still help them to, you know, think through like, I think, does she ever kick herself for spending? Like, does she admit overspending, or is she totally blind to it?
No, she admits it, but cannot stop it, right? And so where our advisors have guided her in the past is budgeting, right? So where I'm coming in is saying, we know that budgeting fails in 90 days.
Yeah, because, you know, where it fails is it hasn't given her an alternate way to get her needs met. So she's going back to what she knows.
That's so powerful.
So what she needs is to identify what are the needs that she's meeting and what are just some other ways. Not that she can never spend, that she can never go shopping, but maybe, you know, out of like 10 times a week that she goes shopping, maybe she cuts that down to 8 because she learns, you know what, I actually really love a bubble bath. Like for me, I can't tell you how like a glass of scotch and a bubble bath replaced shopping sprees once I realized what it was I was really after, you know.
Can I just jump in and say you've just ruined the surprise announcement that we're doing late night with Shaping Wealth starting in 2 months, but no, go on. Danica likes it, yes. Right.
But so she's got to, first of all, she's got to know that there's an issue and she's got to decide that she wants to do something about it. You know, I mean, there are clients that are just never gonna, you know, they're gonna stay blind to it because they want to. And then, but if she wants to, one of the things I'd say might be a fruitful conversation is to ask her, first of all, about like a time that she kicked herself for spending. I mean, you could, I don't know which order to do this in, but I would have her talk about a time when she bought something that she really did feel like, yeah, I love this. I feel good about this purchase. It really met the need. What was it meeting? Or, you know, how does she want to be feeling when she thinks I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go shopping, whatever it is that she does. Whatever she's spending the money on, what is the emotional feeling she's after? Get her to describe that if she's willing to, right? To tap into what she's trying to buy, which is this emotional state. And then ask her about a time that she kicked herself for spending. because that's going to help her remember that there are times that she's gone after that feeling and it's totally backfired. But when you kick yourself for spending, it doesn't, I mean, it just doesn't have to be like a big emotional conversation. It can just be like, when was the last time you kind of kicked yourself for spending? What was the need that you were trying to meet? What need on Maslow's hierarchy, what need did you sabotage? And what is another way that you might have gotten that need met for less money? Not for zero money, just for less money. And that acknowledging the need and then saying, okay, but this strategy is also jeopardizing other needs, and that other need might be for long-term security.
This is fantastic. I think it was Joe above. Yeah. A number of people are asking about the cards that you're referring to. And could you let us know what tool? I mean, this is your thing. How are you, what do you got there?
So this is something I've given a talk on this concept. So this is a concept that I developed at Morningstar, and so I wrote about it at Morningstar, and we developed these cards for the 2022 investor conference. But I left Morningstar last month. It's like, it feels a long time ago, and it also feels like yesterday. And yet I did make sure that I legally am allowed to continue developing this concept.
Yeah. No, that's important. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to be making these cards. I feel like where I'm going with this is I want to make this deck of cards. I can explain how it's used if you want.
Well, just give us sort of the headline of what they are and
yeah. So the idea here is you have the modes on the cards, and you have several of each mode, and then there's a couple of things you can do with these. One is to say, okay, now just line them up in order. Just show me your journey so far. So for me, I would say, well, I started off, my parents were in survival mode. So I'd lay that down and then say, and then I went into, chaos mode when I got credit cards, or, whatever, like you lay out. And then I, started stability. You can get them to lay out their journey up to this point. And then you can flip them over and say, okay, now of these specific skills and mindsets, which could you check off as saying, yep, I got that one, and which ones do you think we still need to work on? Right. So that's one way to use them. There's like choice and chance cards to get people to understand, when you went from chaos to survival, something happened. Was that your personal choice, or was it an element of chance? And then you can get to see, like, how do they think about their financial lives? Are they the ones in the driver's seat, or are they more externally, do they feel like stuff happens to them? You can learn a lot. But what I'm planning to do with these is create workshop materials for advisors, so that you'd be able to order cards for yourself, order cards for your clients, and also I'll have videos how to run the workshops yourselves, that you could do like a client prospecting workshop where you all play with the cards, something like that. Well,
sounds like we'll have another Shaping Wealth conversation down the road about that. The chat is now humming along. I wanted to, and by all means, folks, step in with questions. I wanted to, one big topic we haven't talked about that I know is near and dear to your heart, especially as you look forward to building some pretty amazing things for the world, is financial education. And youth financial literacy is something that I've been involved with for a number of years. University of Chicago Financial Education Initiative is near and dear to my heart. Alliance for Decision Education, founded by Annie Duke. It's not FinLit per se, but it's decision education, critical thinking. Tell us about your journey with FinEd, and how you think we should crack this nut, solve this problem, because we can see that if you look at the data from people like Anna Maria Lusardi, there's some progress, and the sort of large scale data that's available now is more positive than it used to be. So progress is present, but it is small. And especially in the US, we don't have one educational system. We have 50. It gets messy very, very quickly. Give us your vision for effective financial education for our children and maybe for all of us.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, because I'd rather talk about the vision than the problem. I mean, Anna Maria Lusardi's work will also show you the global mess that is the lack of financial literacy. You know, that the world has very low financial literacy, as do Americans. But the thing is that knowing how money works and knowing how to make money work for you it does help you make better decisions. But I think we're not effectively teaching these skills, because we're teaching finance like a math class to high school and elementary school kids. We're trying to teach them about financial products. That's completely irrelevant to their lives. And so it's no wonder they don't remember the concepts when they get to adulthood. And I think that, so my vision and what I'm focusing on now in this next chapter of my career is to get back to my passion for financial education. I said my dissertation focused on how to apply financial psychology to financial education. And what I really think we need is like a home economics for a new age. And what we really need is to help people to see that economics is all about resource management. That's all it is. It's resource management. What are your resources? What are your needs? How are you mobilizing your resources to meet your needs? You know, and so it's a skill that we all need. It's a life skill. And I think that we dive into the tactical aspects of numbers, and we make it abstract. We make it a math class. We need a class that teaches kids wherever you start, you can still, you start here, you have your dream. How do you get from here to there and be happy along the way? How do you make that happen? So let me circle back. Rural kid in Maine, if I had known if I had a different exposure to not financial products, but understanding how do you take your resources, turn them into assets, and then turn those assets into income. How do you do that? Then I may have had a better, regardless of the fact that I didn't have the money to go to New England Conservatory, I still may have been able to find ways using my creativity to turn my talent into an asset. You know, how we need to teach flexible knowledge. It's not one path, you have to do this. It's how do you take what you have and use it to build what you want. So I think we need an empowering form of financial education that teaches conceptually how to manage your resources, and that also is grounded in psychology and works with human motivation and can be a balm to the the hopelessness and despair that I see in the generations that are coming up now, that feel like they don't have many options. They don't have much to look forward to, and they feel like the system is rigged against them. So I want to help give those kids, help them see how to put themselves in the driver's seat of their own financial life, and how to turn what they've got into something valuable in the marketplace, and then use the income to create wealth. So I that's my vision, is an empowered generation of kids who can think flexibly about how to use their resources to create value in their communities and in their lives, and in doing so build lives that they love.
I think you couldn't come up with a better way to punctuate the end of our conversation. It's a positive vision, solving a real problem. Sarah, I'm inspired by you. I have been for years. Thank you for joining us here on this month's Chopping Wealth. You're a friend of the firm. We hope to be doing some cool joint collaborations into the future. Any parting words in terms of where people can find you, keep track of you?
I would say find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to keep track of me right now. I don't tweet very much, and I've got some great stuff cooking, but because I have left Morningstar, and I've started my own venture, but I'm sort of privately cooking some things up that I'm not ready to launch to the world quite yet. So LinkedIn is the place to keep tabs on me if you want to know when I have big ideas coming out. Okay,
and thanks to everybody who's shown up. The fact is, almost nobody has left during the entire call.
Oh, that's so great.
Which is not sort of normal, because people have to come and go, which means that you did a great job. So thank you again.
Well, you guys are all great at multitasking.
Yeah, we will see everybody back here for the next episode of Chopping Wealth.